A wedding night, a cold, silent room, and a man lying still, trapped in a coma. That's where we meet Nora Klein, a cleaning girl from the rough edges of Chicago, forced into a marriage she never wanted. She's standing beside Jackson Pierce, the CEO of Pierce Industries, a man who hasn't moved or spoken since a mysterious accident took his life away. But this night, the one meant to tie her to a stranger forever, is about to turn into something else entirely. The clock strikes midnight. The wedding is over. A hasty ceremony no one will recall. Nora's family forced her into this, trading her simple life for a deal with the Pierce empire. She's alone now, gazing at Jackson, his chest rising and falling under the faint glow of a chandelier. She's still in her plain white dress, nothing special, just something pulled from her mother's closet. Her hands twitch as she imagines holding a mop, a reflex from years of scrubbing floors. She murmurs to herself, "I don't belong here. These walls, this wealth, it's not me." Then it happens. A sound breaks the silence, soft but unmistakable. "Don't go," he says. Nora stops dead. Her breath catches in her chest. Jackson's eyes flutter open, locking onto hers. His voice is faint, barely a whisper, but it's alive. "I need you," he adds, his stare cutting through the dimness. Nora steps back, her heart racing like a runaway train. "You're awake," she gasps, her voice trembling. "I'm just the cleaning girl, why me?" Jackson struggles to sit up, his hand stretching toward hers. "You're the only one I trust," he says, his words carrying a weight she can't grasp. "Don't tell anyone I'm back." Nora stares at him, her thoughts spinning. This isn't what she expected. She was meant to marry a shadow, not a man who could see her, speak to her. "I don't understand," she replies, her voice breaking. "I scrub floors. I don't fit in your world." But inside, something stirs. Nora's mind reels as she meets his gaze. His voice was like a knife slicing through the stillness, she thinks. "I wanted to run, to escape this fancy prison, but those eyes held me there, like they saw something I couldn't." Jackson's thoughts churn too. She's not like them, he thinks. There's a spark in her, a light piercing my darkness. In that moment, the room feels smaller, the air heavier. Nora's unsure if it's fear or something deeper drawing her in. Jackson's hand brushes hers, and she doesn't pull away. "I've been trapped," he says quietly. "But I heard everything, every word, every lie. You're different, Nora. Stay with me." She swallows hard, her heart caught between running and staying. What have I gotten myself into, she wonders aloud, her voice a faint echo. The chandelier flickers above, casting shadows that sway across the walls. Nora steps closer, her fingers tightening around his. Jackson's eyes soften, a weak smile forming on his lips. "You're not alone anymore," he whispers, his voice a promise she doesn't yet understand. The chandelier's light flickers as Nora Klein stands frozen, her hand still clasped in Jackson Pierce's. His whispered promise, "You're not alone anymore," lingers in the air. She pulls back slightly, her fingers slipping from his, but her eyes stay locked on his face. The room is quiet again, save for the faint hum of the machines that once kept him alive. Nora's chest tightens. She's a cleaning girl, used to mopping floors in shadowy corners, not holding secrets for a CEO who just woke from a coma. Yet here she is, caught in his gaze, her heart pounding with questions she can't voice. Jackson leans forward, wincing as he shifts on the bed. "I know this is a lot," he says, his voice raspy but steady, "but I need you to trust me, Nora. Someone tried to kill me, and they think they succeeded. If they find out I'm awake, I'm finished." Nora's brow furrows. "Kill you?" she repeats, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who would do that?" Jackson's jaw tightens. "My brother, Tyler," he says. "He's next in line for Pierce Industries. I heard him plotting while I was trapped in that coma. He thinks I'm gone, and I need to keep it that way until I can prove it." Nora takes a step back, her mind racing. "You want me to lie for you?" she asks, her tone sharp with disbelief. "I don't even know you." Jackson's eyes soften. a flicker of something vulnerable passing through them. "I don't know you either," he admits. "But I've been listening, Nora. I heard your voice when you came in tonight. Soft, honest. You're not like the people who surround me." His words hit her like a wave, stirring something deep inside. He sees me, she thinks. Not the mop, not the dirt on my hands, but me. She hesitates, then sits on the edge of the bed, her hands twisting in her lap. "What do I have to do?" she asks, her voice quieter now. Jackson smiles faintly, a spark of relief in his expression. "Just keep them believing I'm still out," he says. "Stay close, watch them. I'll figure out the rest." Nora nods slowly, her thoughts a tangle of fear and curiosity. "I've never been close to anyone like him," she thinks. "His world is power and money, mine is soap and silence. But his voice, it pulls me in." The hours slip by, the mansion wrapped in a hush. Jackson's strength returns bit by bit, and Nora finds herself drawn to him. He asks her questions, simple ones at first. "What's it like out there, in your world?" he says one night, his voice low as they sit in the dark. She shrugs, a small smile tugging at her lips. "It's loud, buses, dirty floors, people who don't look twice. Nothing like this place." He chuckles, a sound that warms the room. "I'd trade all this for a noisy bus right now," he says. "This place is a tomb." Nora glances at him, her heart skipping. "Then why fight for it?" she asks. Jackson's smile fades, his gaze distant. "Because it's mine," he says, "and because I heard you tonight. You gave me a reason to wake up." Her breath catches. He's serious, she thinks. Every word feels like it's carving a place in me. She leans closer without meaning to, her shoulder brushing his. "I didn't think anyone like you could notice someone like me," she says. Jackson turns to her, his hand finding hers again. "You've never been invisible to me," he says. "Even when I couldn't move, I felt you here." Nora's pulse races, her thoughts spinning. His touch is warm, steady, she thinks. "I've spent my life fading into the background, but he's pulling me into the light." She doesn't pull away this time. Instead, she squeezes his hand back. "I'll stay," she says, her voice firm. "But you owe me a dance when this is over." He laughs, a real laugh, and it's the sweetest sound she's ever heard. "Deal," he says, his eyes shining. "I'll make it worth it." Their quiet moments grow into something more. One night, Jackson pulls her close in the shadows of his room. "Have you ever dreamed of a different life?" he asks, his breath warm against her ear. Nora nods, her voice barely audible. "Every day, but I never thought it'd be with someone like you." He smiles, his fingers tracing hers. "Let me show you something. Alive in this dead place," he says, standing slowly. He takes her hands, guiding her into a clumsy, silent dance. She laughs, stumbling into him, and he catches her. "I'm no good at this," she says, her cheeks flushing. "You're perfect," he replies, his voice tender. "I haven't felt this alive in years." Nora's heart swells. Every touch is a promise, she thinks. I'm a cleaning girl, but with him, I'm something more. Jackson's thoughts echo hers. She's my lifeline, he thinks. I've been asleep too long, but she's waking me up. Their dance ends, but they don't let go, standing close as the night deepens. But danger looms. Tyler and Vanessa Holt, Jackson's ex, watch from the shadows. They've noticed Nora's presence, her unexpected hold over the family. Harold Pierce, Jackson's grandfather, gave her 8% of the company, believing she's his grandson's savior. Tyler sneers in a hushed meeting with Vanessa. She's a nobody, he says. But that 8% makes her a threat. Vanessa's eyes narrow. Then we get rid of her, she replies coldly. Jackson's gone. She's just in the way. Their words don't reach Nora yet, but the air grows heavier, the stakes rising as her bond with Jackson deepens. The mansion is silent as Nora Klein and Jackson Pierce stand close, their hands still entwined from their quiet dance. The shadows of the room stretch long and thin, the chandelier above casting a soft glow over them. Nora's laughter fades, her breath steadying as she looks into Jackson's eyes. She feels the warmth of his grip, a stark contrast to the cold floors she's scrubbed her whole life. I could stay here forever, she thinks, her heart fluttering. Him. I'm not just the cleaning girl. I'm someone. Jackson's gaze holds hers, steady and sure. She's my reason to fight, he thinks. I've been lost, but she's my way back. Their stolen moments pile up like secrets, each one binding them tighter. They talk in whispers through the nights, sharing pieces of themselves no one else knows. Nora tells him about the long shifts, the aching feet, the dreams she buried under mop buckets. Jackson listens, his fingers brushing hers, and shares his own story, a life of wealth that felt like a cage, a brother who turned against him. I never wanted this, he says one evening, his voice low. But now, with you, I want it all back. For us. Nora's chest tightens. He means it, she thinks, and I believe him. But the peace doesn't last. Tyler Pierce and Vanessa Holt have been watching, their suspicion growing. They meet in a dimly lit study far from Jackson's room. Tyler paces, his fists clenched. She's too close to him, he says, his voice sharp. That cleaning girl's got Harold wrapped around her finger with that 8%. Vanessa leans against the desk, her eyes cold. She's a problem, she replies. If Jackson's really gone, she's got no business here. We need her out. Tyler nods, a cruel smile tugging at his lips. Then we make it look like an accident, he says. No one will miss her. Nora senses none of this. She's too caught up in Jackson, in the way he makes her feel seen. One night he pulls her to the balcony overlooking the city. The stars glitter above, a rare sight through Chicago's haze. Look at that, he says, his arm around her. That's what I want to give you, Nora, a world beyond these walls. She leans into him, her voice soft. I've never had anyone want that for me, she said. You're changing everything. He tilts her chin up, his lips close to hers. You changed me first, he murmurs. I was dead until you walked in. Her heart races. He's my everything, she thinks. I'd fight the world for him. The next evening, danger strikes. Nora's alone on the balcony, waiting for Jackson. She hears footsteps, too quick to be his. Before she can turn, Vanessa steps out, her smile venomous. Enjoying the view, Vanessa says, her voice dripping with malice. Nora frowns, stepping back. What do you want? She asks, her pulse quickening. Vanessa moves closer, her hand hidden behind her back. You don't belong here, she says, and you never will. In a flash, Vanessa shoves her hard. Nora stumbles, her hands grasping at air, and then she's falling, tumbling over the edge. The world spins as she hits the ground below, pain exploding through her. Darkness swallows her whole. Jackson finds out too late. He'd been in his room, planning their next move, when a servant rushes in. She's gone, sir, the man stammers. Fell from the balcony. Jackson's heart stops. He races outside, his legs weak from months of stillness, and sees her crumpled form. Nora, he shouts, dropping beside her. She's still, blood pooling beneath her head. He cradles her, his hands shaking. No, 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 he chokes out. I can't lose you. I promised I'd protect you. Tears stream down his face as he clutches her handkerchief, the one she'd dropped earlier. She's all I have, he thinks. I've failed her. But Nora isn't gone. A shadow moves nearby. Cole Raven Maddox, a drifter who'd been watching the mansion. He pulls her from the wreckage, his voice gruff. You're tougher than you look, he says, carrying her to safety. Nora stirs, pain searing through her, but alive. Jackson, she whispers, her thoughts clouded. I have to get back to him. Cole patches her up in a rundown shed, his hands steady. You've got enemies, he says. But you're not done yet. Nora clenches her fists, her resolve hardening. I fell, but I won't break, she thinks. For him, I'll survive. Days pass, and Jackson's world crumbles. He locks himself in his room, clutching Nora's handkerchief, the only piece of her left. It's my fault, he thinks, his voice breaking as he speaks to the empty air. I should have told her I loved her. I should have kept her safe. He doesn't eat, barely sleeps, his strength fading. Tyler and Vanessa watch, smug in their victory. She's gone, Vanessa says, sipping wine. And he's next. Tyler laughs. He's weak without her, he says. This company's mine now. Nora, though, is plotting. With Cole's help, she recovers in secret, her body bruised but her spirit unbroken. She crafts a disguise, a medical assistant's uniform, and slips back into the mansion. Her eyes burn with purpose as she moves through the halls, unnoticed by the staff. She finds Jackson's room, her heart aching at the sight of him. He's thinner, his face pale, still holding her handkerchief. He's suffering, she thinks. But I'm here now. She steps closer, her hand brushing his shoulder. Jackson startles, his eyes wide. Nora? He whispers, disbelief in his voice. She nods, tears welling up. I couldn't leave you, she says. Not ever. Jackson pulls her into his arms, his grip desperate. I thought I lost you, he says, his voice raw. I can't do this without you. Nora holds him tight, her thoughts steady. I'm back, she thinks, and I'll fight for us. But the danger isn't over. Tyler and Vanessa's plan is still in motion, and Nora knows. They won't stop until she's gone for good. Nora Klein stands in Jackson Pierce's room, her hand still on his shoulder, as he pulls her into a tight embrace. His arms tremble around her, his breath ragged against her neck. I thought I lost you, he says again, his voice breaking with relief. The dim light catches the tears in his eyes, and Nora feels her own spill over. She presses her face into his chest, the steady thud of his heart grounding her. I couldn't leave you, she repeats, her words muffled but fierce. Not ever. Jackson pulls back just enough to look at her, his hands cupping her face. You're here, he whispers, as if convincing himself. You're really here. Nora nods, her thoughts firm. I came back for him, she thinks, and I'll fight for us. Their reunion is brief but electric, a spark reigniting between them. Jackson's fingers trace her cheek, wiping away her tears. How did you survive? He asks, his voice soft but urgent. Nora takes a shaky breath. Someone helped me, she says. A man named Cole. He pulled me out and kept me safe, but I had to come back. I found this. She pulls the handkerchief from her pocket, the one stained with her blood but holding a hidden note, evidence of Tyler's betrayal. Jackson's eyes darken as he reads it, a scrawled plan to finish him off. Tyler, he mutters, his jaw tight. I knew it. Nora grips his hand. We can stop him, she says, her voice steady. I've got everything we need. He won't win. Jackson looks at her, awe mixing with his pain. You're incredible, he says. I don't deserve you. Nora shakes her head, a small smile breaking through. You're stuck with me now, she replies. We're in this together. His thoughts echo hers. She's my strength, he thinks. I was nothing until she came back. They sit close, planning in whispers, their bond forged stronger by every shared word. But time runs short. Tyler and Vanessa Holt have grown restless, their plot accelerating. They gather in the study, a vial of poison gleaming in Vanessa's hand. He's weak, Tyler says, his voice cold. One dose, and he's gone for good. The cleaning girl's out of the picture, it's ours. Vanessa smirks, swirling the liquid. I'll handle it, she says. He'll never suspect me. They don't know Nora's alive, watching from the shadows, her heart pounding with resolve. They won't touch him, she thinks. I'll end this. The next night, Nora sets her trap. She slips into the kitchen, still disguised as a medical assistant, and switches Vanessa's vial with a harmless substitute Cole gave her. She waits, her pulse racing, until Vanessa strides into Jackson's room, all false sweetness. Time for your medicine, Vanessa says, pouring the liquid into a glass. Jackson plays along, his eyes meeting Nora's in the doorway. He drinks, then slumps back, feigning collapse. Vanessa laughs, triumphant. It's done, she calls to Tyler, who steps in grinning. Good riddance, he says. Pierce Industries is mine. Nora bursts in, her voice cutting through their victory. Not yet, she says, holding up the real vial. You're finished. Tyler lunges at her, but Jackson springs up, his strength restored, pinning his brother against the wall. You thought you could take her from me? Jackson growls. You thought I'd let you win. Vanessa screams, charging at Nora, but Nora sidesteps, shoving her into a chair. Sit down, Nora snaps. You're done poisoning him. She pulls out the handkerchief, the note clear in the light. This proves everything, she says. The police are on their way. Tyler struggles, his face twisting. You're nothing, he spits at Nora. A cleaning girl can't stop me. Jackson tightens his grip. She's everything, he says, and you're nothing now. Vanessa lunges again, desperation in her eyes, but Nora grabs her arm, twisting it back. You pushed me off that balcony, Nora says, her voice low and fierce. But I'm still here. The sound of sirens grows closer, and Tyler's fight fades. It's over, Jackson says, his eyes on Nora. You did it. But the danger isn't gone. Vanessa slips free, snatching the real vial from Nora's hand. If I can't have him, no one will, she hisses, forcing it to Jackson's lips. He chokes, the poison burning through him, and collapses. Nora screams, tackling Vanessa to the floor. Give me the antidote, she shouts, her voice raw. Vanessa laughs wild and unhinged. There's none, she says. He's gone. Nora's world tilts, but she spots a syringe Cole slipped her, a last hope. She jabs it into Jackson's arm, praying it works. Come back to me, she whispers, tears streaming down her face. I need you. Minutes stretch like hours. Jackson's breathing steadies, his eyes fluttering open. Nora, he gasps, his voice weak but alive. She sobs, pulling him close. You're okay, she says, her hands trembling. You're okay. He reaches for her, his strength fading. Marry me, Nora, he says, his words a fragile thread. Not for them, for us. I love you too, she says, her voice breaking. From that first night, when you saw me, yes, I'll marry you. Their hands lock, a bow in the chaos. His words heal me, she thinks. I'm not just the cleaning girl anymore. I'm his. Jackson's thoughts mirror hers. She's my miracle, he thinks. I'd stay in that coma forever if it meant waking up to her. The police storm in, dragging Tyler and Vanessa away, their screams fading into the night. Nora and Jackson cling to each other, the world shrinking to just them, their love a light against the darkness. The room falls silent as the police haul Tyler Pierce and Vanessa Holt away, their angry shouts fading down the hall. Nora Klein kneels beside Jackson Pierce, her hands still clutching his, her tears mixing with relief. His breathing is shallow but steady, the antidote coursing through him. He looks up at her, his eyes soft despite the pain. You said yes, he whispers, a faint smile tugging at his lip. Nora laughs through her sobs, brushing his hair back. I did, she says. I meant it. Jackson squeezes her hand, his strength returning slowly. Good, he murmurs, because I'm not letting you go. She leans down, resting her forehead against his. I'm not going anywhere, she says, her voice a promise. The chaos settles, but the air still hums with their victory. Nora helps Jackson sit up, her arms steady around him. He's weak, his body trembling from the poison, but alive. You saved me, he says, his gaze locked on hers. Again. She shakes her head, her smile small but real. We saved each other, she replies. That's how it works now. Her thoughts swirl with warmth. He's my home, she thinks. I've never had one before, but with him I do. Jackson's mind echoes hers. She's my everything, he thinks. I'd have stayed lost without her. The days that follow blur together. Tyler's arrest unravels his schemes, his confession spilling out under pressure. Vanessa flees the city, her tail between her legs, leaving the Pierce empire in shambles. Nora's family, the ones who sold her into this marriage, lose everything when their deal with Tyler collapses. She doesn't mourn them. They never cared. she thinks, standing in the mansion's grand hall. But I've found something better. Jackson recovers beside her, his hand finding hers whenever she's near. Harold Pierce, his grandfather, watches from a distance, a rare softness in his stern face. "You're good for him," he tells Nora one morning. "I knew you were." She nods, gratitude warming her chest. "He's good for me too," she says. They start rebuilding, piece by piece. Jackson steps back into his role, but it's different now. He's not the cold CEO he once was. He's a man who's felt loss and love in equal measure. Nora stands by him, no longer the cleaning girl in the shadows. She's his partner, his equal. They spend evenings planning, not just for the company, but for them. "I want a real wedding," Jackson says one night, sitting with her on the balcony where she fell. "No rush, no lies, just us." Nora smiles, leaning into him. "I'd like that," she says. "Something small, something ours." He kisses her forehead, his lips lingering. "Anything you want," he says. "You've given me everything." Their new beginning takes shape in quiet moments. They leave the mansion behind, its walls too heavy with memories, and find a place in Chicago's heart, near the hum of the city Nora knows. It's a modest house by Pierce standards, but it's theirs. They walk hand in hand through a nearby park one afternoon, the sun dipping low. Jackson stops, turning to her. "This is it," he says, his voice steady. "This is where I want to start again, with you." Nora looks around, the grass green under her feet, the air alive with possibility. "It's perfect," she says, her eyes meeting his. "We're not forced anymore. This is our choice." He pulls her close, his arms wrapping around her. "I love you," he says, the words simple but deep. "More than I thought I could." Nora presses her face to his chest, her heart full. "I love you too," she replies. "You saw me when no one else did." They stand there, the world fading to just them, their breaths sinking in the cool air. "Love isn't a trap," she thinks. "It's freedom. With him, I've found myself." Jackson's thoughts mirror hers. "She pulled me from the dark," he thinks. "I'll spend my life keeping her safe." They plan their wedding in that park, under an old oak tree. It's small, just a handful of people, Harold, a few loyal staff, and Cole Raven Maddox, the drifter who saved Nora. She wears a simple dress, white but her own this time, and Jackson stands tall in a suit, his eyes never leaving her. They say their vows as the sun sets, words raw and true. "I promise to see you," Jackson says, his voice breaking. "Every day, every moment," Nora smiles, tears shining. "I promise to stay," she says, "through everything." They kiss, soft and sure, the crowd clapping quietly around them. The night ends with them alone, back at their house. They sit on the porch, a blanket draped over their shoulders, the city lights flickering in the distance. "We did it," Jackson says, his hand finding hers. "We made it through." Nora nods, resting her head on his shoulder. "We're stronger now," she says. "Together." He turns to her, his smile warm. "You're my miracle," he says. "I'd have stayed in that coma if it meant waking up to you." She laughs, light and free. "And you're mine," she replies. "I was invisible until you opened your eyes." Their life settles into a rhythm, a dance of love and trust. Nora takes up small jobs, not cleaning floors but helping at a community center, her hands busy with purpose. Jackson rebuilds Pierce Industries, but he's home every night, his focus on her. They talk about the future, kids maybe, a life beyond the shadows they left behind. "We've got time," he says one evening, pulling her close. "All the time in the world." She smiles, her heart steady. "As long as it's with you," she says, her voice a vow. The park becomes their place, a reminder of their start. They walk there often, hand in hand, the oak tree a silent witness to their love. "I never thought I'd have this," Nora says one day, the wind tugging at her hair. "Someone who loves me like you do." Jackson stops, turning her to face him. "I never thought I'd find you," he says. "But I did, and I'm never letting go." They kiss under the branches, the world theirs alone. So, here we are, at the end of Nora and Jackson's tale, a cleaning girl and a CEO, two hearts that found each other in the dark. They faced betrayal, fought for survival, and came out stronger. What do you think? Can love bloom anywhere, even in the unlikeliest places? Leave a comment below and let me know. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe. There's more where this came from, stories that hit right in the feels. Thanks for joining me on this journey. See you next time.